Hello. Wait, is it? Is it going? Okay. I think it's going. I can't really tell. Okay. Hello everybody, welcome back to my video thing. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about... I was thinking about talking about just like school. For some reason, I just had that kind of urge. The makeup is looking... Man, I don't know. But, you know, the thing is, I've only been doing makeup for so long, and it's always good to try new things. And today I did try something new, so you gotta give me props there. Okay, so I felt like talking about school and my experiences in a public English school, going through a public English school. And now that I've begun to talk about it, I don't think that I should go off track. These kind of videos, there's usually no kind of subject to it. I'm usually just sitting down and yapping and seeing what comes out of it. But I thought this would be interesting because school is something that is very important. But mainly I have been in school for a good chunk of my life. I was in school from nursery, which, since I'm in England, nursery or reception. Yeah, nursery. Nursery is, I think, what Americans call kindergarten. Nursery is England's kindergarten. So I was in school from nursery all the way up to year 9. And then in year 9 I dropped out. And I have my reasons why, and I will discuss them in this video when it comes to it. So, I'm going to talk about everything all the way from the beginning because I think that's more fun. So, how was my time in nursery? Well, I think in nursery I was something like 5 years old, 6 years old, something around that mark. So I don't remember too much of it, but what I do remember are some pretty fun moments. God, I hate this makeup so much. Jesus Christ. So, in nursery, I remember something very distinctively, which is the snack time we got. Was it lunch? I believe snack time was different to lunch because what this lunch was I remember it was just fruit. At some point in the day, they'd go around and we'd sit around a table and they'd hand us like fruit and maybe biscuits. Was there biscuits? There might have been biscuits. But I remember there being a bunch of fruit and that was all of the food choices, or that was all that I decided to eat. So that was a fun part of the day. So apparently there was like a nap time. That's what my sister says. I don't remember that. I don't know if she's just like lying to like be funny or something. But there might have been a nap time. So yeah, I mean if your nursery had that, let me know, because I don't know if mine did. And other experiences in nursery, I made a couple friends. I only remember one though. He was called... Oh, also, it's important to note that I am a trans girl, obviously, and so going through this whole school experience, I was a boy. So I made one friend, and I was thinking about giving him an anonymous name, but these names are quite common, so what's the point? His name was John. Yeah, so my best mate in nursery was John, and we would play this little game where so we had these little like Jenga blocks. There were these like Jenga blocks, and we would make a rocket ship out of them. That was the game we played, and because we took this quite seriously, all of our rockets had to have a... Obviously we didn't know how rockets worked or anything, but all of our rockets had to have a core in it, which was the central power system to our rocket ships. So we'd build our rocket ship, find this little like glowy object thingy we had. I don't remember if it was glowy, but our imagination made it glowy. Then we'd put the glowy thing in the middle of our Jenga thing, and that was our rocket ship. We made the rocket ship, and then it could take off or whatever. But there is an antagonist to to this story, there was another kid called Joseph. Joseph was our worst enemy because every single time we made one of these rocket ships and we put our heart and soul into it, he would come over and just kick it down. And I'd like to say that this is my first bullying experience, but if I'm being completely honest looking back on it now, this kid just thought we were playing and he thought he was part of the game. So no hate to Joseph, no shade, but at the time I was genuinely distraught about him ruining our rocket ships, and I genuinely hated him. So that was basically the nursery experience. There was also another memory I have of nursery in specific, which was, I remember one time going to the toilet and I was going, Miss, can I go to the toilet? She said, yeah, sure. I went to the toilet and I saw a kid taking a shit with the stool door wide open. He was taking a shit and he had a dummy in. This kid, I don't really have much memories of him, but if you know a dummy, there's a pacifier, this thing you suck on when you're like a baby. He always just had a pacifier in, and he never talked ever. I think maybe this kid was just like non-verbal, or mute or something, or just hadn't learned to talk yet, even though we're 5 years old. But I remember him, he was in the stool taking his shit with the door wide open with a pacifier in his mouth, and he had his diaper just on the floor in front of him, which raises many questions, like, why was this kid taking a shit with the diaper on? Why was this kid taking a piss with the diaper on? This kid went to the toilet, took his diaper off, and then took a shit in the toilet, or took a piss in the toilet. Because I don't remember if it was shit or not, but he was sitting down in the stool, and I remember walking into the toilet, seeing that, and just walking right out, because what the fuck is happening there? What is going on there? So, that's all of my memories from nursery. Moving on. So, in general, positive experience, don't remember it. But going on into the next year of school, which is reception. Reception is probably just like, is there a name for it in America? Kindergarten? Elementary? I guess this is the beginning of elementary school. I think Americans probably just call it first grade, but we call it reception. So we're all about like 6-ish years old, and it's a very nice place, very nice year of school because, you know, you're just learning your basics, you're learning your 1, 2, 3s, your ABCs, and there's also a lot of playtime. Lots of the learning was very just like play, like you'd make things and stuff like that. Memories from reception, I remember this for some reason. I think maybe your parents go into you with nursery, because I remember in reception, the first day of class, my mum was saying bye to me, like she was dropping me off. And I just remember crying and being like, no, don't go. And I remember trying to run out the door, and the teacher was like blocking me like this, like stepping back and forth the doorway, like, no, you can't leave. And I was just trying to escape the school and ran to my mum because I was scared. So I remember that. But the way that my mum would get me to go to reception was she would kind of pay me with Bionicles. Every single time I finished a class, I would get a new Bionicle, and so it kind of made me a bit excited to go to school and stuff because I knew I'd get a Bionicle at the end of the day. I was very into Bionicles. So reception, I made a bunch of friends. Obviously, this is where you meet your class for the next 6 years, 7 years. Because the class you meet here, you stay with for the entire thing. You get stuck with the same 30 kids. I befriended basically all of them. You know, you're very friendly at that age, and you kind of just get along with everyone. But in specific, the kids that I liked the most was a kid called Logan. He was my best friend, basically, throughout most of the school year. Another memory I had was, there was this girl called Inez, and this is quite a strange memory. But basically, she said, oh, I've got to go, guys, I've got to go to the hospital, like midway through the class, you have to leave early. So I said, bye. She went, and then about 30 minutes later, it was break time, and I just remember going up to this box, this big box, and this is gonna sound like I'm lying, she just popped out of it. I watched her go out the front door, 30 minutes later, I go up to this big box, pops out the box, and just goes like, "Hey guys," like nothing happened. And everybody there was like treating it like it was normal, and I was just dumbfounded. Like, what the? Like, you just teleported back into the school? And she was like, "Yeah, I teleported back into the school." I was like, and I believed her. I'm assuming that she just walked back in, and she didn't actually have to go to the hospital, or something happened, and I just didn't see her walk back in. But at the time, that kind of made me believe in magic. So, reception. Moving on. Year 1. After reception is year 1. God knows why the system works like that, but that's how it works. Year 1, I believe, is when things get a bit more educational. I remember this is when you start learning spelling and stuff like that. And during my year 1 experience, I went on a holiday to Dubai, and I came back 2 weeks later. Now, this is a true story because during this time I missed out on quite a bit of school. This is a true story and I'm not joking. I missed out on the class where they learn about full stops and punctuation. And because of that, I didn't know how to properly use a full stop until I was maybe 13. And it's embarrassing to say out loud, and I don't think I've ever told anyone this, but I would never really know when the full stop would go in. I'd kind of just put it in whenever I felt like it, and that seemed to get me kind of far, but I never really knew how they worked or why they existed. Because you never learn it again after that class. They don't teach you it again, they don't give you like a recap or anything. So that's my year 1 experience. Moving on. Year 2. Oh, I should just talk about teachers. Year 1 we had quite a nice teacher. Year 2, probably the best teacher we had in the entire 6-year experience at the school. Nothing really notable happened in year 2, not that I can remember. I remember getting my pen license, if America has that, but in England, whenever you'd get quite good at handwriting, they'd give you a pen license, which means you are now allowed to write with a pen. I assume it's because you can't erase things with a pen, so they have to have some trust in you. So, year 2, moving on, year 3. Year 3, the teacher was not the best. I don't remember the teachers' names, but she wasn't very good. Okay, here's the actual story. The main highlight of year 3 was the school trip we had. And the school trip was a school trip to, was it year 3 or year? It wasn't year 3, I'm sorry. Let's just skip to year 4. Year 4. Year 4 we had a teacher, and I actually remember her name because she was that good, called Miss Gauntlet. She was amazing. Maybe too good, because a lot of the time she wouldn't really teach us anything. She'd kind of just go on her own little rambles and just talk to the class like we were her friends, and that felt really, really nice. And I loved that class. Year 3 was one of my favourite years in school, just because of that teacher. That's how it goes at primary school, because you get set with one teacher for the entire year. So your entire school year experience is really just based on the teacher that you get, which sucks, but that's the system. Miss Gauntlet was amazing. But the main part of this year, in year 4, was we went on a school trip and we did bushcraft. Probably not an American thing, but basically it's a thing where you stay and camp in a place overnight. I believe you stay there for 2 nights. And you learn a bunch of camp stuff. You learn how to make stuff with sticks, but it's mainly just a day out. You get to do some cool stuff. But I'm gonna keep this quite simple because I don't want this video to go on forever. One of the classes, it's in bushcraft, one of the activities was we had to shave these sticks with a knife and turn it into a peg, a sharp peg. So I did my peg and I was done with it. I had this peg, I did it. But the person next to me, John, you remember John? Yeah, you remember John from nursery. His stick looked a bit different. His had no skin on it. He had skinned his peg. I was like, "You can do that?" He's like, "Yeah, do it." So I started to shave the peg. My technique. Okay, imagine this is the knife, and this is the stick. So you're supposed to go like that and cut it like that, right? I was going like this. I was cutting towards myself like that. Going like that. So obviously, didn't go well. I was cutting it and I slammed right into my thumb like that with a knife. And it was quite a nasty cut. And believe it or not, there is still, oh, the camera's not gonna pick on it, but there's still a scar on my thumb. That little crease in the middle of my thumb is actually like the scar from the incident. And because I cut that quite deeply, I had to go to the hospital and I missed out on my most anticipated activity, which was marshmallows and hot chocolate. They all got to sit around a campfire, roast marshmallows, and drink hot chocolate, and I was in the hospital for 6 hours. Like, and I came back at like 3 a.m. Worst time ever, and I was gutted. But they also had brownies. They were eating brownies. But the next day when I got there, they had a brownie left over. Like, hey, I know you're in the hospital. Do you want to eat this brownie? So I ate the brownie. Way too sweet, disgusting. Threw it away in the forest. So that was year 3. Moving on, year 4, I had, no, that was year 4, I mean. Moving on, year 5, I had a teacher called Mr. Howick, the first male teacher that we had. It's also quite funny because we kind of saw these teachers like presidents, the way that Americans see presidents or England sees prime ministers. Because at the end of the school year, they'll tell us the teacher that we're going to have the next year. They'll tell us all at once. So we got told we were getting Mr. Howick at the end of year 4. We're like, yes, yes. The whole class was ecstatic. It was like fireworks going off. Everyone was happy apart from like some girls, because everybody at 9 years old is a bit misogynistic. Like we were just really happy to have a boy, and we were boys, so it was like a boy thing, you know. So we also got quite gutted when we got girls teachers. Anyways, year 5 was really good. Not much to say about it, apart from we just had a really good teacher, so it was a good experience. We had a school trip called PGL, which I'm sure most English kids have been on, which is like a week thing. You go and stay a place for a week and just do a bunch of fun activities. Real fun. Year 6. Worst school year we had in primary school. So in year 5, we got the teacher announced to us when we got told that we were getting Miss Koba. There had never been a reaction like this before. So every single time the teacher got announced, the whole class would cheer. There'd be a lot of noise and clapping and happiness. They called out Miss Koba. Silence for 30 seconds, and then crying. About half the class started crying with sadness and disappointment, just to get an idea of how bad this teacher is. And as funny as that may seem, at the time, it was genuine distraught, and we were actually terrified, because we knew we were going to have this girl for a year, and it was as bad as you could expect. She is the strictest teacher ever. I'm not sure if they do that on purpose to like get you ready for secondary school, but it was terrible, and the experience was terrible. We had a year 6 production. Okay, let's talk about the school trip. The school trip, we went to Bristol. We stayed in Bristol for a week, and that was kind of fun. The main highlight of Bristol is I flooded the hotel room and made the whole hotel evacuate. So that's the story there. Basically, we were gonna go to this like quiz night, and before we went to the quiz night, we wanted to fill up our water bottles. I was the last person to fill up the water bottle, but I thought someone else was filling up the water bottle after me, and we were on like the 4th floor. So I left the tap running. We went downstairs, and the fire alarm went off. Everybody evacuated. Then we went back inside. People were crying because they thought that their room had burned down, but we're just stupid kids, so yeah. We got back to our room. I open up the door. Whole room is flooded. Entire room is flooded. Lost a bunch of clothes. Not really anything else, but apparently the water had sunk through the carpet and triggered a fire alarm. My bad, because I made us all stand outside for like 3 hours. Anyways, year six, there's a thing in year six, because it's the last school year that you're in primary school before you move school. There's a thing called the year six production, which is a end of year play that the year six class does, just to say like their goodbyes and stuff. But we were, well, I would classify as torture. We would practice for this play every single day for 6 hours every day for a month, and it was grueling. And the teacher was really strict, and she really bossed us around to it. Terrible. Year seven. So we moved out of year six, thank God, onto year seven. Started primary school. I hated it, but I think that's how it is for most kids, because it's a whole new environment. You don't really get to see any of your classmates because everybody gets split up. Made a couple friends, but really I just hated it to death. It was awful, and I hated so many things about it, and I could go on for hours. But the main things were there were very rarely nice teachers in the school. There were quite a lot of bad kids in the school, and when you're in year seven, I still don't understand this. The year 11s, which is the top kids, they're like 16, they bully the year 7s so hard. Like every single time I was walking down the hallway, a year 11 would just like nudge into me and slam me into the wall, and it sucked, and I never understood it. And even when I was 16, I was like, I don't have an urge to just pick on 10-year-old kids. I don't know where that comes from. I don't know where that comes from in people. So that's why I hated year 7, and I was just kind of happy to move on to year 8 because there'd be less of that, and there was less of that. So year 8 started, but yeah, COVID started in midway through. So most of year 8 was done from home. Then, so I'm just going to kind of skip year 8 because we were just doing, I didn't do any work during COVID. I did none. Quite literally zero. I just played Fortnite the entire time. So year 9 started, and because no one had seen each other for almost a year, everyone had changed very drastically. And at this time in your life, year 8, because you were about 13, 14, everyone's going through puberty. So in that 1 year, everybody had changed drastically. Everybody's voice had dropped like 4 octaves. Everyone was really tall, and I didn't really change much. And everybody's personality also changed. So very suddenly, I remember meeting up with my friends, like my standard friend group, and just didn't click with them. It was really weird. I remember I just went up to them, and things just really didn't feel the same. We'd usually go up to each other, be like, "Hey guys," and we'd instantly just start talking and stuff. But this time I went up to them, I was like, "Hey guys," and they were just like, Not really dry and flat, and none of us just really got on anymore. So I stopped talking to them quite quickly. And for for about a month or 2 months, I had no one. I had no friends in school, and it actually made lunchtime and break time my least favorite times of school, because I'd spend the entirety of lunch, which is about 30 minutes, I'd spend the entirety of lunch trying to stay away from everyone and have people not see me. I became insanely socially anxious after lockdown, as I'm sure a lot of other people did, because we weren't really used to social interaction anymore. But I was terrified. I was terrified every single minute of the day at school at the thought of just someone looking at me. I hated how I looked because it was around this time where I started to kind of feel a bit. At the time, I didn't know what it was, but now I know that it was dysphoria, and I kind of just didn't like how I looked at all, so I hated when people would look at me. My anxiety was terrible. I remember I couldn't breathe around people, literally. A lot of times people just say it's like, oh, you can't talk around people. I couldn't breathe around people. Every single time I walked past someone, I go, and hold my breath, and I wouldn't breathe because I was scared. I was scared. This is not a joke. I was scared that they were going to judge my breathing pattern. I thought they were going to think my breathing pattern was unnatural. I hated my weight. I was a bit chubby back then, but I only just then started to notice it. I hate my weight, I hate my body, and I was really insecure, really anxious. So I kept it up for about 3 months. Then I just told my mum, like, I can't do it anymore. Like, I want to transfer. So we transferred to. We didn't transfer. I left school. So that's why I dropped out at year 9. A lot of people don't know that the reason why, because I think it's just a boring reasoning, like, oh, I was too anxious, or it's just a bit long. But the main reason I didn't go back into school, because I dropped out in year 9 and never went back into education. The reason I didn't go back into education is because of something to do with coronavirus. I had this one school that I wanted to transfer to because I knew someone that went there, but there was a huge wait list for it because of COVID, and we couldn't get in because it was taking too long. We were on the wait list for the whole year, and then year 10 came, and I was just like, let's just give up. So we tried other school alternatives, but for year 10 there was nothing. For the entirety of that year, nothing. I was just at home playing video games, talking to like my friend online. And then the next thing related to education that happened was, it's really hard to explain what this was, because it's not private school, it's not private tutoring, it's not one-on-one tutoring, it is kind of one-on-one tutoring. But because I had very bad social anxiety, they had to give me some kind of alternative. I couldn't just go back into public school. So I did this thing with this guy. It's a really weird facility. I went to this facility, I would talk to this guy, he'd give me like these tests, and they were but easy, and I mean easy. And he'd like gas me up like, oh my god, you're so smart, but the stuff I was doing was like year 7 work, like genuinely. And so obviously I breezed through it because it wasn't that stupid. Did all that, and then at the end of that I got a qualification. No, before it ended, it was like, okay, you need to do one practical thing. You can either make a presentation, you do this, make a presentation, research this, make a project, or you can learn guitar with me. So I was like, well, guitar sounds the easiest because I already had a guitar at home. I already knew like the basic shit. I know like the basic like chords and stuff like that. So for about a month I was learning guitar at a really beginner level, and I knew everything that this guy was teaching me because he was telling me, oh, this is a G, this is an A. Then once I did that, I was out. What came from that, I don't know. I got some sort of certificate that said I could do something. Like, that guitar thing was basically just proof that I could use my fingers, essentially. So after that ended, this is now around year 11 time, and I've finished everything, and I don't plan on going back to, school or anything. And then I was in this really confused state for the next couple years because I had no qualifications, I had no GCSEs, I wasn't planning on doing GCSEs. I didn't have a job, I wasn't looking for a job. And things only really have started making sense since like a few months ago. I'm in the process of getting my name changed, and then I'm going to start job hunting, and then hopefully things are up from here. But I was in a very weird, really weird state for quite a while, where I was doing nothing all day, I wasn't doing anything productive. I really felt like I was wasting my life, because it kind of was. I wasn't doing anything, I was just playing Fortnite. And that might sound like, oh, you're being lazy. It wasn't a choice. I couldn't make myself do anything else. I can't stretch how terrible anxiety and depression can really be. It really can just put a hold on your life. And it did. So, yeah, well, I'm glad to say that at the very least I am getting somewhere now. sorry about that. My phone went off and I got a bit scared. I thought my mum messaged me. Because it's 12:30, I shouldn't really... Well, I can be up, I was just scared I woke her up. And that is my experience in public school. I'm not sure if I really said much, but overall my experiences were very negative. I am very upset with the way it went. But yeah, so I talked and I felt a bit better. Also, I'm wearing fox ears. I felt like mentioning that at the last minute because I forgot that I haven't worn these on the channel yet. I wear these when I'm sad and they make me feel a bit happier, so please don't be mean. Yeah, thank you all for watching. This has been a Melanie Yap about one subject for 30 minutes. Who else can do that? Probably everyone. Thank you all. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.